All right. Welcome to Four Books, where we explore stories that challenge, inspire, and linger long after the final page. I'm your host, Cameron Whitfield, and today marks a milestone for Four Books, our very first author interview. And I couldn't ask for a better guest to kick things off than David Norman Lewis, the author of The Golden Basement.
hmm
Uh, this book had me thinking long after I finished it. It's a novel that definitely lingers. Golden Basement is layered with history, mystery, deep existential questions, all wrapped in a story that explores cynicism, belief, and the weight of the past. There are moments of quiet revelation, then sudden bursts of action, almost like uncovering something buried piece by piece. Welcome, David. I'm excited to have you here today. Let's get started with a quick introduction. And how would you describe the Golden Basement to someone picking it up for the first time?
Uh, I would just shout out some phrases. I would be like underground monsters, 90s Seattle, comedy, trippy. One of my favorite reviews said it was filled with happy bleakness. They said
Happy bleakness. Yeah.
happy bleakness actually is my favorite way to describe the book.
I would agree with that. That's a good one. Yeah.
And
Uh,
fun. It's
yeah.
very much inspired by a crappy little roller coaster we used to have in Seattle called Flight
hmm
to Mars. It
hmm
was like a carnival level ride. Loved that thing though. It was an
hmm
adventure, and I want the book to have that same kind of feel.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Uh, so first question. So one of the most fascinating tensions in the book is between cynicism and belief. Some characters have this unshakable faith in something, whether it's history, an ideal, or even another person, while others seem to drift further into doubt. I saw this most clearly in Evan's journey. Um, as he and through his encounters where he figures out, the recycler and Gideon, you see him constantly recalibrating what he believes. How do you see these themes shaping the characters and reflecting bigger societal questions?
Well, it's funny you were saying cynicism versus belief, like those are opposites. The cynical characters in the book also have an unshakable belief in their cynicism,
Right, right,
even when that is questioned. And
right.
at one point, I won't reveal too much, but when a character's cynicism is punctured, they compare cynicism to the same feeling of being really drunk when it's cold out, where
Mm,
cynicism just makes you feel warmer, but you're still freezing to death.
hmm.
And so cynicism also has a lot of faith involved in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's every one of your, characters have something they're holding on to unshakably for most of the book. And like where it's interesting is when all those characters, collide and their, beliefs are shaken. It's interesting. It's so many different perspectives. Yeah.
There's a lot of perspectives, and I've noticed a lot of the like everyone in the book is based on like real people I
hmm
know.
hmm
I have a friend who it's the only novel he's ever read in his entire adult life.
hmm
And just from reading it from the dialogue, he knew who a lot of the people were.
Uh-huh.
And so
Uh-huh.
he told me, so there'd be no tension between us. I
Uh-huh.
was allowed to use any stories he told me
Uh-huh.
because he knew it was based on that. But I'm sorry, that was a sidetrack.
Yeah, yeah.
The people who really interest me in real life, where I know a lot of people where lived experience makes like no difference to their worldview. Like, no matter what happens to them, everything is filtered through like media they consumed when they were kids or
hmm
like
hmm
predetermined mindsets.
hmm
And I find those people so fascinating. And so I was thinking of like, who would I know in real life who could encounter senile subterranean aliens and in no way be shaken by that experience?
Right. Yeah.
Who would like encounter that and be like, how could I use this? Or
Uh-huh.
like would just that would not affect their worldview at all.
Yeah, just not surprised, not surprised one bit. That's just, my wife and I joke, it's like with all the stuff that's crazy stuff that's happening the last, well, forever, but last, 5, 6 years especially. It's like, oh, this crazy thing is happening. It's like that's not surprising at all. Like that's that's not the weirdest thing we've encountered. It's
Yeah,
like
so yes, yes, more stuff is going to roll
this
on.
one's like, yeah. Um, but that's a good segue to the second question is uh what kind of about like kind of the feels like personal, but not personal beliefs. But one of the things I appreciate about the Golden Basement is while the personal struggles of the characters drive the story, there's this larger invisible force pressing down, where like about society and systems, history repeating itself. He's like between generations. Um, this book isn't set in isolation, as you mentioned too, like growing up in Seattle. There's a broader historical and cultural weight to it. The way you weave these tensions feels very, very relevant. Uh, how do you see this backdrop influencing this story? Were
Well,
there other real world events or movements that shape like what you chose to shape build this world? Because I know it's a very, set in like the 90s in Seattle. I know that feels like a very real presence in the novel.
yeah, well, it's the era that it's set in is like right at the end of the Cold War,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the era that a lot of historians refer to as the end of history,
Mm.
where damn colds, it always comes back. But
Yeah.
um, sorry, one second.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, historians call that era that it's set in the end of history because it's the Soviet Union was ending, and it seemed like there was no global conflict anymore.
Mhm.
That the entire world was going to become American style democracy, like
Mhm.
everywhere.
Mhm.
And one of the big influences on the book is I read like every National Geographic from the
Mhm.
late 80s and early 90s.
Oh wow.
And
Uh-huh.
that's such a good window into the mindset of that time period because it
Mhm.
is like covering people in Poland who can get McDonald's for the first time.
Mhm.
And it's like lines around the block to get McDonald's and American rock music. And it
Mhm.
seems like everywhere in the world just wants to be America and like all problems are solved.
Mhm.
And I mean, like time goes on no matter what, and like new conflicts arise. So I thought that would it's a very interesting transitional time period to set stuff in. And my degrees in history. I have a bachelor's degree in history.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
My favorite parts of history to study are not like presidents or people involved in decisions.
Mhm.
I'm way more interested in people who are affected by those decisions, who
Mhm.
kind of like have
Mhm.
to live out the decisions of more powerful people.
Right.
Like I think of it like Bonnie and Clyde in the Great Depression.
Mhm.
Like they were not policymakers. They had no huge impact on history, but
Mhm.
their story could not have existed in any time except the Great Depression. Like they are so
Right.
shaped by that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I wanted to depict a kind of upper middle class family in Seattle in that
Mhm.
time period,
Mhm.
and what's going on with them.
Yeah, I love that Cold War part is interesting because you had the games, which is the real event that happened, right? That
Oh, yeah, that was a real.
89. Because I was
Yeah,
doing some research about it. It's like me when I like read stuff and I know when there's like a real kind of historical kind of reference, I like kind of dove in and kind of researched as much as I could. And like it's so interesting.
yeah, I'll give a little quick
Yeah,
background
yeah.
on that. What happened was back in 1980, the United States boycotted the Moscow Olympics because of the
Hmm.
Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Hmm.
And then the Soviets retaliated by boycotting the 84 LA Olympics.
Hmm.
And Ted Turner was worried it would lead to nuclear war. So
Hmm.
Ted Turner created his own Olympics, the Goodwill Games, to
Hmm.
stop nuclear war. And every
Wild.
other
Yeah.
city in the world thought it was just a giant joke and like an ego project.
Hmm.
But at the time, Seattle was such a provincial town, they
Hmm.
thought they were getting the real Olympics.
Hmm.
And our city flag still says Seattle City of Goodwill. because Seattle was so excited to get
Uh,
this epic world-changing event,
hmm
which I think was discontinued by the mid '90s.
hmm
But it was such a Seattle event. It was so of that era of Seattle trying to be a giant international city that
hmm
I thought the Goodwill Games would be the perfect backdrop for the novel to get that era across.
Yeah, with the Cold War. Yeah, and that's what and talking about how each of the characters see that event and what it represents. Um, um, and what the ultimate goals are, as we don't want to spoil anything.
We'll try to
But
tell not to spoil it. I'd
yeah.
phrase it. The lead character in the book, his name is Evan July.
hmm
He was literally his dad's a ex-ride engineer who finds all this underground alien technology that he can't
hmm
work.
hmm
So his dad has a bunch of kids with a bunch of different women, hoping if he raises one from a really early age, they'll be able to work it.
hmm
Evan can do that, but he's lived his entire life underground. So his only access to the outside world is like local TV and media. And he believes everything he sees in media. So he has completely bought like the Goodwill Games message of like international
hmm
peace and all of that because he has never seen the sun.
Yeah, and that contrast of, this 80s and 90s TV, like in contrast with, all the kids watching their giant screens in the living room. I'm like just thinking that idealism is something not idealism, but like the Evans, hope to see how that worked, hope to have that life in contrast with the, being in the underground his entire life, especially like how he just like designs his room.
Yeah, and the idealism of back then is wild. Like I was born in '91, so the book is set like a little before my time.
Mm,
But it's people think Seattle '90s, they think grunge.
mm,
The book
mm,
is very or the first half of the book is very much set like right before grunge. Like that didn't take
mm,
off until a couple years later.
mhm,
And the idealism of that time period, like rewatching commercials from that time, is
mm,
wild. Like even coffee commercials, they're
mm.
like, "It's coffee in the morning." Like it's so
Yeah,
optimistic.
totally.
It's a great backdrop for a horror novel. It's
Mm.
such a nice contrast.
Yeah, and I like with that we're getting, like I said, we're not out of time. We're just having a conversation about this stuff. The part I liked about the Golden Basement was, yeah, there's that, you know, that 90s, 80s, 90s life from Evan, but also there is like that very there is some of that grungy kind of element of like because you have in the book of like the illustrate like weird illustrations, like it reminds me very much of like an old style like a 70s 80s cartoon of like something just weird and science fiction. I think that really brought uh a lot of you know that bring all that to life. I really enjoyed the artwork.
Oh yeah, it's definitely it's going for like a very zine kind of feel.
Yeah, yeah, the zines. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But like the kind of thing, if you were going to a community college in Seattle in the '90s, you would have seen
Mhm.
stuff like that, like laying
Right,
around on the tables. Uh,
right.
yeah, definitely going for that vibe.
I definitely enjoy that aspect.
It's,
Uh,
a lot of
good.
people have brought up the kind of '70s feel of a
Huh?
lot of it,
The
and it's
70s, the
funny.
90s, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but that was not intentional. It was more that all those '90s guys were inspired by '70s guys,
Right. Does
so that there
yeah.
is a lot of
Makes
crossover.
sense. Yeah, yeah.
Because like anyone who was doing a zine in the '90s wanted to be like Hunter S. Thompson or
Mhm.
William Burroughs or something.
Right, right, right. Uh yeah, it was like 70s and 90s at the same time.
Yeah.
I loved it. So switching gears a little bit. Well, switching gears a lot. Uh So another thing that you had like when I was reading, I was taking notes. There's a lot about like art and geology. The way history gets buried, sometimes physically, sometimes metaphorically, and that slow grinding shifts that eventually reveal or erase something entirely. I felt like the perfect metaphor for people, places, and even ideas that are forgotten over time. Uh, what drew you to these motifs? How do they connect with these themes of like impermanence and transformation? Was that something that's intentional, or is it something kind of like evolved over,
It, it
the
was a
writing?
little intentional. It's just that I'm pretty into geology,
Hmm.
and so I want to work that in.
Uh-huh.
And I'm really into what's called the Shaver mystery. Have you ever heard of that?
No, what is that?
Oh, Richard Shaver, he was this guy who back in the 30s believed he was abducted by senile subterranean aliens and taken to their like underground lair where they repeatedly sodomized him.
Uh-huh.
And then in the 40s, he wrote about it for a pulp magazine. I think it was Amazing Stories. And the pulp magazine, they normally got 3 to 5 letters to the editor per month. And when he
Hmm.
published his story, they got like 20,000 people writing in saying the same thing happened to them.
Uh-huh.
And one of
Huh.
them was a guy here around Seattle in Tacoma who was also involved in the Kennedy assassination. So we have kind of a culture of that.
Wow.
It later turned out in the time period that Richard Shaver said he was in the underground lair of what he called Darrow's degenerate robots. He was actually catatonic in a mental hospital that whole time, but
Wow.
true believers thought it was happening on like the psychic plane.
Oh, well, that's a whole yeah.
Yeah,
Not a
but
possibility. Yeah.
it's interesting how you brought up because I'm just realizing this now,
Uh-huh.
the crossover between history, things that get buried, and
Hmm.
geology. And one of the things that fascinates me the most about that late 80s, early 90s time period is it's right on the verge of the internet. And so in that time
Hmm.
period, there are a lot of people whose lives are like in no way documented, even though they're alive now. Do you ever see the movie Streetwise?
Not for a while. Yeah, but for those
Oh,
who haven't.
you must rewatch Streetwise.
Mhm.
It's on the Criterion Collection now. It
Mhm.
was a documentary about homeless youth in Seattle in the late 80s.
Oh, okay. I have to write that
Because
down.
I think it was
Mhm.
Life magazine called Seattle the most livable city in America. So these documentary filmmakers set out to do a documentary about homeless youth in downtown Seattle to show if you could find them there, you could find them anywhere.
Mhm.
And the kids in Streetwise, when they finally saw the movie at the premiere, they asked the filmmakers, they went, "Is that really what our lives are like?" Because they had never seen themselves on camera before and they had like never
Right.
seen their lives shown like that.
Uh-huh.
And back then you could still have that kind of experience.
Mhm.
And that's also like in the late 80s in Seattle, we had the Green River Killer who was killing sex workers. And the investigation of that case, there were all these losers who were like accused of being the Green River Killer. They weren't him, but there were so many of them where it was the only time like there's no internet at this point. There's no Reddit. There's no online comment sections. So there's all these losers who get in the spotlight and cannot give it up and
Mhm.
are like keep incriminating themselves to like get on TV or get in the newspaper. Because back then, that is the only way that people like that can ever be seen. And then it all just gets buried and all that culture is just forgotten about.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it is like fossils. Like you can find the remnants of it, but you really don't know what it means.
Yeah, this underground history, just like just the pieces you've seen or symbols you don't know. They're just like people walk by every day and not know that is part of this intricate history of the city. That's fascinating.
It's
Uh,
one thing about the Green River Killer case that was
yes.
interesting is all the books about it, they mention that there were a lot of people who were very callous about it being like sex workers who were being killed and people complaining, like, why are we wasting our money on this? But you cannot find any primary sources of anyone actually stating that opinion because back then you'd have like had to put your name on that opinion, and no one was
Yeah, when
going
you
to do
submit it,
that.
yeah, right.
Yeah, so all these like attitudes from back then that are lost too, and it wasn't that long ago.
Mm,
So yeah, it's like an excavation, like digging up dinosaurs or
mm.
geodes or something.
Yeah, and yeah, just shifting, yeah, the shifting, shifting attitudes and shifting ideas. Uh, so the last question, then we still have some time if you want to get into some other topics. The last one is about alternative endings. It's kind of a little tougher question, but you know, I love when a book's ending feels like it's inevitable, but it's like, oh, this could have taken a different path. Without spoiling too much, was the Indian Ghost Basement is one of those where I sat back and thought about it and all the different ways could have gone. It felt like a natural conclusion, but I also kept wondering, was there ever a version where things turned out differently? Like, did you ever get alternate endings or, you know, different ideas?
I had so many alternate endings, a whole like characters cut.
Hmm.
Without giving away too much, the ending that's in the book now, I actually just stumbled across
Mm.
while reading Nathaniel Hawthorne's notebooks. Uh,
Oh,
who
okay.
the guy who wrote like the Scarlet Letter and the House of the Seven Gables.
Uh-huh.
Uh, in his notebooks, he has ideas for novels he never did.
Hmm.
And I remember I was getting off an airplane and I just opened it up at random. And the novel idea he had was he wanted to do a book. He was really into hypnosis. He had the idea of doing a novel about someone who was like brain controlled from an early age by like a powerful hypnotist
Oh,
who
uh-huh.
who is like manipulating the person and making them nothing but an extension of them, and like to completely live to be their servant and
Hmm.
think about nothing but serving them and their goals. And then the master dies of a heart attack, and it's the servant is left to live with no one telling them what to do and guiding them, even though that was all they were ever bred for.
Wow.
Uh,
When did you have this idea? Like, was
1850s.
1850s? Wow,
Yeah,
that is way
but
that that is a great plot. Yeah.
yeah, it is. That's what I thought. That's why I stole it.
Yeah,
Where
that
I,
I was like, oh yeah, that's that seems very prescient. Yeah.
yeah, I saw
That's
that and
it.
I was
Yeah.
like, it's like, well, there's that ending I've been looking for,
Hmm.
and it already kind of fit the themes I had for the
Hmm.
book,
Hmm.
and I just and it all just clicked. I was like, yeah, now I know how it's gonna end.
Hmm. Was it Did you have like a favorite character that you enjoyed like writing?
I really liked writing for Gideon, who's
Mm.
this obnoxious communist zine writer who
Mhm.
actually is right about the stuff he finds, but he can't articulate it. That was based
Mhm.
on a guy I know. And the original version of the book, he was the lead character, and the book
Mhm.
was set at in the mid 2010s when I first started writing it. It
Hmm.
originally was not set in the 90s. It was about like a guy, well, not now, but a guy like 10 years ago doing a
Hmm.
podcast.
Hmm.
But the book kind of had some like dark themes, and setting it in the 2010s, like I wasn't doing it for me because there was no
Yeah.
contrast because
Yeah,
that was
not enough of
already
a hook. Yeah,
and the 2010s honestly was a pretty crappy era. So like the
yeah.
the super positive optimistic backdrop of the early
Mhm.
90s and then the late 90s,
Mhm.
which it's funny where the late 90s feels like a more cynical era, but it's a very like stylized, not real kind of cynicism.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, what's the yeah, distinct part to describe the 2010s? Like, I don't know. Couldn't come up with anything either. There's a lot
I
going
would
on.
say in like there's a lot of cynicism in the late 90s, but the people who are being cynical are like Rolling Stone writers with very secure six-figure jobs.
Right.
And in the 2010s, those same people are all getting laid off.
Hmm.
And So it's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
much. For a horror novel, it's much better to have that positive, optimistic back
Right.
from the
Yeah.
contrast.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I was a sophomore in college in like 2008. So during that first big recession. So I get a, you know, get a little bit of that. But yeah,
I
like
was
they get all these people are like so secure, they were so secure in their jobs. But it's like, yeah.
no, I was in community college. I started in 2008. Here in
Mm-hmm.
Washington State, we have a thing called Running Start where you can do it in high school.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I was 16 then, and I actually loved that time period
Mm-hmm.
because I was 16 and everyone else in my classes were like in their 50s and
Mm-hmm.
starting over again.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like the smartest person in the world back then because it's like, wow.
16. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, wow, they're all like 50 and they're just starting over. I'm gonna be so successful. Then I turned out not to be. But in that time period, it was like bam.
hmm
Of course,
Yeah.
I can see if you were older, that would have been a pretty bleak time, you know.
Yeah. And I say it too, be on the other side. Like I didn't start in community college, but now working at a community college now and seeing the variety of, of students, like, yeah, like they were just, we have some who are, just fresh out of high school. And I see a lot of students who are, those are restarting as well. And like similar conversations. Um, but, um, Speaking of characters, I know we're at the time time check. So about 10 like 15 minutes or so, because I do a little bit of wrap up. Um, One of the other aspects I like too is like your the kaleidoscope of characters and how it's more like an ensemble kind of piece and like switching between different characters and viewpoints. Like you had Evan and his sister. You have the um Rocker and his girlfriend and Gideon and Recycler, like all these different folks, like very like distinct voices and all, but they all have like similar kind of traits, like just trying to reach their goal, trying to achieve something. But like
Like
how they all come together.
every single one of those characters you just mentioned is
hmm
quasi based on a real person,
hmm
and all of them say things all those real people actually said.
Uh,
And I just wanted to get all of my favorite characters into one book.
uh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's knowing that maybe some of the also things that they've actually said that makes it more interesting because like you have a lot of interesting friends.
Oh, some of them are not friends, but
Not anymore,
people
not
I
friends,
do. Yeah.
people that you've known in those spheres. Yeah, good clarification. Um, uh, so do you have any like anything upcoming? Any any
Yeah,
like
I'm doing a big history book next.
okay,
Yeah.
what you working on?
Whew. It is basically it's like a real life Western. It's
Okay.
called The Burning of Moses, Seattle, and Other True Stories from Old Puget Sound.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people don't know this. Seattle, it's named after an Indian chief, Chief Seattle, and his grandson was a little person who was burned alive in an unsolved murder mystery.
Oh wow.
It was never resolved, but that's going to be quite the book.
Yeah. When do you anticipate that coming out? When's the potential release date for that? Or you just kind of just starting to work on it and
Oh no, I have not just started to work on it. I told a friend, I said I missed my goal of getting it out by Christmas.
uh-huh.
At least now I know how I'm gonna die by smashing my laptop over my head while working on it. I would ideally like to have it out middle of next month,
mm
hopefully. I've been
mm
I used to back when we still had weekly papers here in Seattle. I used to write history articles for them, and a lot of the things in the book are based on stuff I wrote back then.
mm.
But, oh, it's going to be fantastic when it's out. You'll get a comp copy sending it to you.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, like I look forward to reading it. I'm a big history nerd myself, so that's looking forward to it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
But yeah, it's a great look at
So
history.
yeah, is there anything else you want to kind of highlight or talk about? We may not even like in the last like few minutes before we wrapped up.
I have a couple movies coming up, but
Well,
uh, neither of them have like distribution or anything. Fantasy Gets a Mattress is the one that's out now. It's pretty cool, but you can only see it if you live in Seattle, basically,
mm.
or the Netherlands, showing in the Netherlands soon.
Oh, okay. Very specific. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that if you have a chance to check that out, go for it. But all of the Reddit posts are always like, "When is this going to be available?" So it's a interesting movie to pump where no one can see it unless they're here in
Mm,
Seattle. But I would check that one out. Working on a movie called Crystal Ball now. It's kind of a follow up to it, but that won't be out until 2016. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Um, let's see. Yeah, that's the stuff I got. That's the
mm.
stuff I've got to pump. Do you want to
Okay,
pump
okay.
anything?
I I would say for four eye books as things are getting started in 2025, keeping an eye out for more reviews. Something I'm working on now is the review for or I'm reading Sacramento Noir, which is by Akashic Books, and they do short story collections based on different cities around the world, and it's been one of my favorite series to read. So
They do Seattle Noir too in that series.
yeah, that's what I've been like. I discovered that series like I guess 5 years ago now, and it's just like love they how they pick authors that live in the city or have deep knowledge of the city. Kind of really brings um, that city to life when they're talking about murders and murders and mysteries. So I'm glad
Sounds
to
like
have
you're
one in our
pretty
hometown.
into the West Coast. You like Seattle, San Francisco,
Yeah, yeah,
Sacramento. I mean,
yeah, yeah. So I try to collect read they have like 200 something books now, and I try to buy the ones that are in places I've visited or lived. So it's been a blast. So that's coming up, and then um hosting some more bookish adventures of different bookstores here in Sacramento, and then I have a backlog of a few of like when we've traveled out of town to
oh,
promote.
you're in Sacramento?
I am in Sacramento. Yeah.
Oh, you got to come up to Seattle sometime.
Yeah, I know. My wife been wanting to go. Like I've been to see it like years ago. But I know my wife and I want to go and check out the different
Oh,
museums.
come on up. Well, actually, I'll take you to the real Seattle Underground. We can go underneath the city, like in the book.
That'd be fantastic.
I'll take you to this bar, the Underbelly,
Uh-huh.
where you can see a mold that eats spiders. It's called zombie fungus,
Oh, damn.
where it
Okay.
covers them in like a white fungus.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we'll explore underground tunnels. We'll have a great time.
Yeah, that sounds great. We'll definitely take you up on that.
Yeah.
Uh, so wrapping up. We're running out of time. So David, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I've loved diving into the layers of Golden Basement, and thank you for being the first interview. Uh, and is there any kind of like social media or websites you want to plug or anything? You've talked about the other projects, but is there any kind of
DrCleanProductions.com. You want to
Mhm.
check that one out. And then just my Instagram, Evergreen Ape 2024. I should change that to 2025 now. But Evergreen Ape 2024. Check that out for all book news.
Fantastic. Well, thank everyone, all listeners. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out my full review of Golden Basement on 4A Books, which will be posted by the time this interview gets posted. So, um, on there, like check it out. Buy the book, Golden Basement, and share the conversation.
Buy it, read it, use it, like they say in
Yes,
California.
exactly, exactly. Uh, all
That's
right.
the Scientology thing about Dianetics.
Oh, well, and with that, we'll wrap it up with this first interview. And as always, some books challenge us, some books comfort us, but every now and then one comes along that changes us. Until next time, keep reading and keep exploring.